this is Pam Pearsall. I'm here today with Quincy Castleberry. She is with the Court-Appointed Special Advocates, also known as CASA. So, what does the CASA do, Quincy?
Well, that's a big question, Pam. CASAs are appointed by the judge to be the eyes and ears for the court for a child while they're in the foster care system.
So if I was to become a CASA, would it be voluntary or would you pay me?
Yes, we would. You would be a volunteer. Advocates are volunteers. Okay. And so you would get to know the child that's in foster care that's appointed to you. You get to choose which case you want to be on. You get to learn all about that child, all about their family, all about the reasons why they came into the foster care system. And you take all of the information that you're given and then you make recommendations to the court about what you think will be in that child's best interest.
Oh, that sounds like a big responsibility. How many hours, about a month, do you think a volunteer spends as a CASA?
Each month it's about 15 to 20 hours a month, depending on the complexity of the case that you take. If you have one child and things are going relatively well in that placement, you might only spend that 15 hours a month. If the case is a little bit more difficult, maybe there's circumstances that are more challenging within that case. If there's a sibling group and you agree to work with that sibling group, you might spend a little bit more time getting to know or contacting the different people that are advocating for that child that are on the team. Those are the paid people, the attorneys, the case managers, behavioral health case workers, etc. Okay. But you are an independent advocate. You are getting information that the judge wouldn't otherwise receive on that case for that child and filling in a bunch of blanks for her to make decisions going forward.
That sounds so important. Do you have enough CASAs right now for the foster care?
We don't. We have about 75 CASAs, active CASAs in Yavapai County. We have approximately 350 children in the foster care system.
And typically, how many children does a CASA take on at a time?
It depends. You'll hear that a lot if you become a CASA. It depends. Most CASAs like to start off with one child as they're getting to learn what their roles and responsibilities are. Mm. But with time, I have had CASAs take several children on their caseload, if you will, because they have the time to do that and they're familiar with what the expectations are for being a CASA for those children.
So as a CASA, you said I'm writing a report to the judge. Do I need to be a good writer then?
It helps if you're a good writer, but if you're not, you are working with CASA staff closely throughout your journey as a CASA. We want to make sure that you're given all of the information and all of the tools to be successful in being an advocate.
So it sounds kind of like if a person was a pedophile or he had a problem, it sounds like this would be something he'd want to do because he's right there around a vulnerable child. And how do you make that not happen?
We're really particular about the people that we accept into the CASA program. Not only do you have to meet the state requirements to be a CASA, which are based on the national requirements because CASA is a national program, but you have to go through a pretty intensive interview with CASA staff. You do have to pass a polygraph exam, a background check, provide 3 references to the office. And I would say staff really is in tune with the people who are applying to become CASAs. And thankfully, we have not had any issues with people wanting to become a CASA for the wrong reason. So we try and take every possible precaution, if you will, to make sure that the right people are applying and they understand what it is they're going to be expected to do.
So if I'm in Yavapai County and I volunteer in Yavapai County, then is my child going to be also located in Yavapai County?
They may start out in Yavapai County. Now, every case in Yavapai remains a Yavapai case. Even if the child gets moved out of the county, it still is retained in the Yavapai court jurisdiction, juvenile court jurisdiction. We like to make it as easy as possible for advocates to be able to have access to the child that they're advocating for. But oftentimes due to no reason of the child, or anything that has to do with them or their behaviors, they have to be moved out of the area. We do have a lack of foster homes right now in Yavapai County. And so a lot of our children do have to be placed out of the county just because there aren't enough homes here.
I heard during the pandemic that there was such a shortage of foster homes that they were actually like putting them in an office and a staff member of DCS.
Yes.
That is so horrible.
Spending the night with children in the office until they could find appropriate placement. Yeah.
Now that's not happening anymore.
No, it still does happen. It still happens. Sometimes the DCS worker is looking for, waiting to hear back from a family member or waiting for a local placement. Maybe you have a sibling group and you'd rather not split them up. Mm-hmm. So if you wait a day or two, of course, that might mean sleeping in an office with the children. You can place them together locally because all of our cases, typically, I'd say the majority of our cases start out with a case plan of reunification. If parents are local, we want to keep the kids local because we want that team to be working together as easily as possible. When children get placed out of the area, it makes it more difficult because then you have to worry about transportation, getting parents to the kids, getting kids to the parents, and the team. It's definitely more stressful for everybody if they have to travel very far to provide services to help with reunification.
Okay, so let's kind of talk about the system. You have, let's say, mom is a single mom and she has drugs on her and she gets pulled over and arrested.
Yeah.
And she has a child in there.
Yes.
So then there'd be a phone call probably by the police made to DCS.
Correct.
And then what happens from there?
Then they'll assess the situation. There's always an on-call worker from DCS that will come out. They'll assess the situation. They'll talk to mom and say, do you have any local relatives or even friends that might be willing to take little Sally into their home until we can figure out what we're going to be able to do for you. We don't know if mom's going to jail, how long she'll be in jail, if she'll be able to post bail or not. And so they will work with the family to determine if there's a family member or a close family friend, somebody who might be willing to take that child into their home until they can sort things out. When children are removed initially, there's a lot of stuff going on, a lot of questions being asked, a lot of work being done by the Department of Child Safety before we all have to go to court and talk to the judge about what's going on. And so it's just that's when the clock starts and it gets really busy. But DCS is always going to be looking at what's in the best interest of this child. Can we keep the child locally? And then things happen from there.
Okay, so that's my pretend scenario. Mom's got warrants. Looks like she's going to be gone a long time. No relatives. This child ends up in placement in a foster home.
Licensed foster home.
In a licensed foster home. Judge has given the child, made a child a ward of the state.
Yes.
And now, let's say the child's, I don't know if I give him an age, 7.
Okay.
So now, I'm assigned as a CASA and I come in and I meet the child. What else do I do? I'm going to write a report. I'm going to say, okay, what else?
To write that report, you're going to need a lot of information. So first, you're going to get a lot of the foundational information from the CASA office. That's why did the child come into care? Any police reports that were maybe generated due to that mom being pulled over. The Department of Child Safety might request medical records, other types of records related to this family. The department might also have history with this family that they would be able to share with our office. And it doesn't just come to the CASA office, it goes to the whole team to give everybody a better understanding of what's been happening with this family up until this point in time. After a child comes into care, there's a lot of services that get put into place for both the child and the parents. And as a CASA, you get to be part of those meetings, those appointments, all of the different things that are being expected of the child and the family. You would be working with the foster placement, scheduling time to have visits with the child. You are able to take the child out to go do activities. You just get to become, in some cases, it's a mentor. Sometimes it is just an advocate. We've had CASAs who really approach this from almost a business standpoint. I'm here for you. I'm going to advocate for you. And they can have that type of conversation with the child. Other times it's you become a friend, an ally, somebody that they can trust, because one of the biggest things, Pam, is it really only takes one caring adult to make a difference in a child's life. And because the foster care system is complicated and complex, and there's a lot of turnover in the professionals that work in this industry, oftentimes CASAs are that one constant adult that stays with that child through their foster care journey. And they make that difference because they trust the CASA that's assigned to them. They get to know them. And many times CASAs and children develop a relationship long after their foster journey has ended because they've made such an impact in their life.
So if I'm a CASA of this child and he has a sister or a brother that's also in the system, would I probably be the CASA for the siblings as well?
We talk about that. It depends. If the children are both in the same placement, we would probably ask you to do that just because it wouldn't be fair to go visit the one child and go do things with them and not the other. If the children are placed in different placements for some reason, let's say they both have different fathers and extended relatives are willing to care for their own relative grandchild or niece or nephew, but they don't want to care for that other one in their home, you may only be assigned to one. It gets very complicated. Our families have a lot of complexities in their family tree. And so we just take it on a case-by-case basis.
So like an example, I have one child and he has his brother, but I'm not that CASA. But he tells me, I miss my brother. And why can't I see my brother? We go to different schools. Would I be able to put in the report, I suggest or I recommend visitations?
Absolutely. You can advocate what you feel is in that child's best interest. And if that child is expressing to you, Pam, I really miss my brother. I really want to see my brother. You bring that to the team, and then they talk about the appropriateness of that. And CASAs have been known to help facilitate some of those visits with the children. But you are the voice of that child in the court. And I've seen CASAs do amazing things in the court, both through their written report and their verbal advocating that they do regularly through the monthly meetings and in the courtroom. So you make a big impact because you most likely, other than the placement family, will know that child better than anybody else on the team.
Except for maybe their parents, but the parents could be in jail or they could be on drugs or there could be another issue. Exactly. So at some point, let's say I'm a CASA and I'm like, I know that the state everybody wants to reconcile these parents, but this is, in my opinion, not the best because of many reasons. Could I say that to the judge or do I have to be online with what DCS says?
No, I have had CASAs frequently be that one lone voice in the courtroom. As long as you have factual information to back up why you are making a particular recommendation. It can't be a gut feeling or, Judge, I really just don't think that these parents are going to be able to hold it together. It has to be founded in more factual information before you can make a recommendation that the child not go back with mom and dad. As long as we're working towards a case plan of reunification, parents have to meet a minimum sufficient level of care. If they're doing that, if they've worked services, they're showing that they're clean and sober for a period of time, we have to support that family unit unless there's something really egregious, really concerning, especially to the health and well-being and safety of that child. We have to give families that opportunity to reunify and be safe and appropriate. And most of the time, I'd like to say it works out. Sometimes it doesn't. And then we get right back to the same situation that brought us there to begin with.
Quincy, I got to tell you, it seems to me like anybody that would take their time for a vulnerable child and do this is a hero to our community.
Absolutely.
Anybody that wants to make a difference and is sincere, I think this is a fabulous organization. How long has it existed?
CASA has been in Arizona over 30 years. The organization itself just celebrated their 40-year anniversary a couple of years ago.
Wow.
And so...
Do you have any foster care people grow up and become CASAs, or do you have any data on that?
I don't have any data, and I'm trying to think. We have not had any CASAs in Yavapai County that were in foster care and had a CASA. We have had a couple of people over the years that did experience certain things in their families, and that's why they want to give back. And so they really understand everything from that child's point of view, which I think is really important because oftentimes people will look at a CASA or look at child welfare and people who work with these children, and they think, oh, that's so hard, and I can't believe you're doing that, and oh, bless you for saving these children. And CASA work is not about saving the children. It's not about changing the system. It's about being there for the child while they're going through this experience, getting on their level, looking at what they're going through their lens, and being able to say, how can I help make this a little bit better for this child? Okay. How can I advocate for them? How can I ease some of the pain that they're clearly going through? Because ultimately, Pam, I have learned in the 10 years that I've been doing this, children want to be home with mom and dad. That is their desire, even if circumstances that they were removed from are horrible and things that you and I think, how could anybody want to live in that environment? That's still mom and dad. That's still their home. That's what they're familiar with. Mm-hmm. And we can't project our own expectations and standards on another family, let alone a child. But we do want to advocate for what is in their best interest, but taking all of that information into consideration as we're doing our advocacy and making those recommendations to the judge.
Okay, so if I want to volunteer, how do I contact you or CASA?
If you want to volunteer, you can type in casaofyavapai.org. You will go directly to our website. You can also go into Google, write CASA of Arizona. It will take you to a state website, and from there you can get to the local website, or you can call our office, 928-771-3165. Call the office. We can give you more information. But I think going to our website is probably one of the best places to find out more. There's a section on frequently asked questions. There's statistics there. There's copies of our latest newsletter. And there is a place to apply. You just hit the Apply Now button.
Okay, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
So this is Pam Pearsall, and you've met Quincy, and hopefully if you're looking for a place to volunteer, you'll realize how important CASAs are, and maybe it'll be a good fit. Thank you. See you next time.